All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of my unending quest to help students better understand the material for the AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies and AWD 1111 Database-Driven Website Development classes, I am creating a series of videos that are based on the ebooks by Mr. Flavio Copes. So far, I have done the HTML ebook, and I'm in the middle of the one for CSS. All right, and it's time to talk about the box model. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch gears a little bit in that I'm going to go here to this picture. And this is from W3 Schools. There's other pictures as well, but this is the one I'm going to use. All right, so as it says, the term box model is used when you talk about design and layout. The box model is essentially a box around every HTML element. So everything that you create, every letter of every word, of every sentence, of every paragraph, of every page, of every image, of everything that might go onto a web page. Everything. All right, so everything has got a box around it. This is the content. So imagine again, this is a sentence, hello world, right there. All right. So around that is padding. So padding is what exists between the content itself and the content's border. Now, you can have content with padding, no border, no margin, padding, border, no margin, padding, border, and margin, no padding, border, margin, no padding, border, no margin, etc. And all the different types of possibilities. But let's suppose you've got everything. So the content is what's in this box. The padding is what's between the content and the border. The border is between what's between the padding and the margin. And the margin basically is what you have between different elements. So here's their definition. The content is where you put your text and your images. The padding is the area around the content. It's transparent. So you can't take padding or margin and give it a color. It doesn't make any sense. So padding, as it says, is the area around the content. Border is basically, again, it says it goes around the padding and the content. That's true. It also is between the padding and the margin. And margin, which is also transparent, is going to end up being the difference, what you have between different elements. So we've got this example here. Let's just take a quick look at the example. So notice we've got all of them in here. We've got padding. Let's just take it from the top. So here's our content. That's our content right there. All right, that's what's in the div. And I'm going to change that. You don't have to, but I'm just going to put, this is a sentence that I will repeat 6 times. So there it is. And when I run it, there it is. Okay? Now, the width is, as you'd guess, how wide this thing is. Well, let's do the background color. And let's make that, how about purple? All right, you can immediately see that in here. So let's make the font color, which is just color, let's make that white. Whoops. And now we've got that. You can read that just fine. I at least hope you can. We can make this, let's make this a little less wide, so 250 pixels. Whoops, 250 pixels. And you can see it cut that down. Okay, that's all fine. Then we've got a border. Now notice the border is pretty thick. It's 15 pixels. And it's solid and it's green. Well, let's make it 5 pixels. And instead of solid, let's make it dotted. And instead of green, let's make it, I don't know what would show well on there. Green actually looks pretty good. But how about white? No, that won't show. Just black. All right. So 5 pixel dotted, oh, I didn't put in my, there we go. So it's kind of hard to see, but that is dotted. When I make that bigger, you can see the dots. All right, and it's 5 pixels, so it's not as big as it was before. Now, what I want to show you is this. I want to show you the difference between padding and margin. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this div and I'm going to replicate it. So I've now got 2 of them. So you can see there they are, but I'm going to put both of them in a div. Oh, that's interesting. That's fine. Leave it like that. And like that. And then end this div. And now I've got a div and a div. All right. Now, this outside div, I'm going to say width equals, let's say 600 pixels. Okay. Now, don't worry about that. I've got here div width. I don't want to put it there, of course. I'm going to put here ID equals outer. Okay. Now I'm going to put in here, first we'll have an ID of outer. And we'll put in here width 600 pixels. Hopefully that's going to be enough for what I want to show you here. There. So they're both in here. Okay, that should be pretty obvious as far as what's going on. And let's put the background of this. We'll put background orange, just so it sticks out a little. Why I keep trying to save, but there's that. Okay, now I made it nice and small too, so you can see that. And let's do 2 more things. And then I'll be done showing you what I want to show you. All right, so let's see. I'm going to cut this down. I'm going to say this. I'm going to show you this 3 times. In fact, I'll leave it in there as 6 times, but I'm only going to put it in there 3 times. And do the same thing here. There's always a method to my madness, even though there may not seem to be right now. So run it. Okay, there they are. Now, these are each 250. I'm going to make these about 150 each. Okay. There. It's getting there, but I want to push that one over to here. Yeah, this will work just fine. So what I want to do is I want to change the padding here from 50 to 150 pixels. Watch what happens around here and around here and even around here. All right. Can you see how I've got so much more space in there? So the padding is what was between the content here and my border. If I knock it back down again, let's just put padding at 20 pixels. You can see how much it changes. All right, margin is the area that's between these elements. All right, so let's take the margin and set that to 120 pixels. And now notice how much more that was pushed off. And when you work with padding and margin, it's like a clock. All right, so if you've got an analog clock here, all right, and we'll look at it just right here. 12 o'clock is the top, 3 o'clock is the right, 6 o'clock is the bottom, and 9 o'clock is the left. All right, so again, top, right, bottom, left. When you are setting margin and you are setting padding, because there's shortcuts up the wazoo for this kind of stuff. So I showed you this. I gave you my interpretation of it. You can take a look at what they talk about in here. A border, again, the thin layer between padding and margin. We already talked about that. There's a bunch of different border styles. I did, of course, not show all of them. There's examples, and you can see pictures if you're interested. Not only that, when you set up a border, border by default puts a border on all four sides. But you can have just a border top, or just a border left, let's say right, or just a border bottom, or just a border left too, if you want. Or you can combine and have just a top and a bottom, or whatever you want. The width, as it said, sets up the width of the border. There are some predefined values. Typically, I stick with, this is one place I do use pixels. All right, but you don't have to either. You can, as it says, even set the different width of each ledge. Now notice top, bottom, top right, bottom left. It's that clock that I told you about before. Color, you can set it up, and again, you can use the predefined colors, and I'm using those just because they're simple right now, but you can also use RGB, you can use hex codes, you can use HSL, etc. And I've been using the border shorthand, which again has got what? The width of the border, the color of the border, and the style of the border. You can also put a radius on here, which is kind of neat, because what that'll do is it'll take whatever it is that you're doing, and it'll give it a little bit of a rounding effect. So let's use that example, and let's go back into here, and in this try it here, in the div, let's give each one of the divs a little bit of, oh, I don't know why I keep trying to save, radius. Now watch the ends here, here, etc. when I run it. All right. I don't know if you can put a border radius on a div. I don't know why you couldn't. Border radius. What if I said here 50%? We'll take that. There you go. It made it circular. All right. So I'm going to just set this here to 5%. And you can see now I'm getting that rounded effect all over the place. Probably I'd even want it less than that, maybe just 2%. So it's got a slight little rounding on it. Okay. All right. All right. Sorry about that. I had to take a quick break. And we're coming back. I think I pretty much talked this to death. So hopefully you now understand the difference between all of the components of the box model. Those being, again, the content, around the content. You've got the padding, around the padding, between the padding and the margin. You've got the border, and between the border is between the padding and the margin. And the margin is a distance between two different elements. All right, so let's see what they have to say here. Again, I'm not a fan of sitting there and reading to you. All right, that's why I thought that maybe you'd rather have it this way. So again, border we've talked about. Here is padding. So again, margin adds space outside of an element, padding adds space inside of the element. And with padding, you got your choice. You can either do all of them at once, or you can do them separately. You don't have to set padding for everything. You can only set bottom or only right, etc. in any combination you want. If you only put one value in like this, it puts padding on all four places. So this is the same thing as saying padding top 20 pixels, padding right 20 pixels, padding bottom 20 pixels, padding left 20 pixels. It's a shortcut. If you use two of them like this is a shortcut for saying padding top 20 pixels, padding bottom 20 pixels, padding right 10 pixels, padding left 10 pixels. All right. And with three values, it's again a shortcut where the first one applies to the top, the second one to the left and the right, and the third one to the bottom. So again, there's multiple ways always that you can do this. All right. And as it says, padding accepts many kinds of values, many kinds of length units, pixels, ems, rems, etc., and there are others. Margin basically works like padding as far as top, bottom, left. I'm sorry, top, right, bottom, and left, etc. It has the same four properties. So again, there's a lot of similarities here. It has the same types of shorthands that we just looked at. And again, just like with padding, it accepts values of basically any kind. Now here's an interesting one here, using auto to center elements. As it says, auto can be used. And when you say margin 0 auto, think about what this means. This means I want no margin on the left and no margin on the right. All right, I'm sorry, say that again. Margin 0 auto means I want 0 margin or no margin whatsoever, top and bottom. The left and the right should automatically center. All right, so if we put this in here, I don't know what it's going to do, because a lot of times it depends on the width of what you're working with, etc. But let's come in with our paragraphs and put in margin 0 auto. And now I can close this and this and this. All right. Now, again, it's kind of hard to tell with what we've got here because of all the stuff that we put in here. All right. But typically when you use margin 0 auto, instead of using it here, you'll probably end up using it like in the body or something like that to center things on a page. Again, it's very hard to tell in here with all the stuff that we've got in here, so don't worry about it. All right, because again, we're going to look at it again and again and again in here. All right. You can use a negative margin, and sometimes you use negative margins to make things come in from the left or the right or from the top or from the bottom. So sometimes when you use things like this, you use it because you want to create animation type of effects. All right. Now, as it says here, the box sizing property itself has two values. I've never even seen content box, but it's the default. But the one that you're going to end up using a lot is this one, box sizing border box. And again, you don't have to, but quite often you end up putting it up right in here. Now, as far as what that means, okay, let's go back. Let's see. So let's suppose for a second that we said that, trying to think of a fast way to show you. All right. So if we look at these two divs that we've got right here, the first div has got a width of 300 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. All right, and it's got a border around it that's solid blue. And the second div is 300 pixels by 100 pixels, but it's got 50 pixels of padding. So the difference between these two is the padding here, 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 and here. Okay, you can see there's no padding here, but up here there's no padding there. There's no padding here, there's no padding here, and there really is no padding here. This is just the extra area that's available. But by adding that 50 pixels of padding in there, now I've got 50 pixels here, 50 pixels here, 50 pixels here, 50 here, and then whatever is left. All right. So what it says here is box sizing can solve this problem. When you do this, if we wanted these two things, basically what it's doing is it's changing the size of this div. All right. And what do I mean? Well, 300, 100, 300, 100. Well, that's not 300 anymore. And that's not 100 anymore. And actually what this is it's 400, which is the 300 that we had originally assigned, plus the 50 on each side. So 50 here and 50 here for padding. And the height, which was 100, is now, again, we have put in here 50 pixels of padding for the height, 50 pixels of padding here. So that, again, is now 200. Okay? So what happens when you do the border box? All right. So we've got this here, this border. All right. And what we want to put in here is, where is it? So I'm going to put in here for this second one. I want to see if this is going to matter. So I'm going to put in for the second div, box sizing, border, box. All right, and let's run it and see what happens. Notice how the size changed. The system is still doing the best it can to give you this stuff, but it is now 300, 100. By saying border box, what you're saying is do not increase the size of the container as, proportionally as you increase or add padding, margin, etc. All right. So as it says, border box is the new and great thing we are looking for. If you set it on an element, width and height calculation include the padding and border. Only the margin is left out. This property is a small change but has a big impact. CSS Tricks even declared an International Box Sizing Awareness Day, saying that basically it's something that you're going to end up using quite a bit. All right. The display property, as it says, determines how it is rendered by the browser. This is another property in here. Whoop, and I'm over, so I'll start it up on this in just a moment.